predict the future is a discouraging and hazardous occupation because the prophet invariably falls between two stools. If his predictions sound at all reasonable, you can be quite sure that in 20 or at most 50 years, the progress of science and technology has made him seem ridiculously conservative. On the other hand, if by some miracle a prophet could describe the future exactly as it was going to take place, his predictions would sound so absurd, so far-fetched, that everybody would laugh him to scorn. So, if what I say now seems to you to be very reasonable, then I'll fail completely. Only if what I tell you appears absolutely unbelievable have we any chance of visualizing the future as it really will happen. But what about the city of the day after tomorrow, say the year 2000? I think it will be completely different. In fact, it may not even exist at all. Oh, I'm not thinking of the atom bomb and the next Stone Age. I'm thinking of the incredible breakthrough which has been made possible by developments in communications. These things will make possible a world in which we can be in instant contact with each other, wherever we may be, where we can contact our friends anywhere on Earth, even if we don't know their actual physical location. It will be possible in that age, perhaps only 50 years from now, for a man to conduct his business from Tahiti or Bali just as well as he could from London. I am perfectly serious when I suggest that one day we may have brain surgeons in Edinburgh operating on patients in New Zealand. The only thing we can be sure of about the future is that it will be absolutely fantastic.
That was recorded by Arthur C. Clarke 50 years ago, 1964, predicting the future. And there's many other predictions that he's done, but those particular ones in terms of where technology now is absolutely fascinating. Arthur C. Clarke had 3 laws that he created between 1962 and 1973 that would describe the way in which you can predict. And what I want to talk about today is not actually necessarily predicting the future, but looking at why these laws have so much relevance even today. And his first law talked about fundamentally the acceptance of however much knowledge you have, you can't know what you don't know. And you can know a lot about different types of technology and how to develop it, but it doesn't matter how much of that knowledge you have, there are still things that you can do out there, and you can still have that wide-eyed enthusiasm. And one of the key things with the end of that clip, and true generally of the way Arthur C. Clarke would communicate, was that he was clearly hugely enthusiastic about the future and what it would hold. And it's fascinating to see just how accurate he was, but actually it makes perfect sense now, and nothing in there was absurd, when clearly when he was saying it, they would have thought so. In 2002, I had a look after this, and around 2002 was when they actually did remote brain surgery over thousands of miles. I had no idea that they'd done it that early, and I've no doubt where we are now in terms of progression is a lot further. So William Thomson was a scientist in the 1800s, late 1800s, who created the foundations of physics and thermodynamics. He was one of the first people in the world to install a telephone in his house, and essentially to some extent predicted the backbone of the internet, the fiber optics. He also believed that radio would never work, that we'd never fly, and that X-rays were a hoax. And this was due to the way he was limiting his own belief, limiting what he thought was really possible, even though he clearly had a huge amount of knowledge around what was possible. And sort of lends to that need to accept that sometimes, however much you understand something, that only shows what's possible, not what is impossible. Arthur C. Clarke's second law talks about taking that next leap. And of course, having said that nobody would be able to fly, we were able to fly in the early parts of the 20th century in aeroplanes, albeit quite interesting at that stage. But in the last decade or so, we've actually been able to fly, albeit, again, quite a hazardous occupation. But we can do it. And it's the enthusiasm for wanting to be able to do that, wanting to be able to achieve that, which enabled people to achieve this. So ideas aren't new, especially technology ideas. And over the last 100 years or so, we had Hugo Gernsback wearing his TV glasses in 1963. I don't think that'll ever catch on. We've got the oldest selfie, or known selfie, taken outside his family store in 1839. And then some bright spark thought it would be a really good idea to get a moving map that tells you where you need to go in real time, which is ridiculous. But this all leads on, for me, to the most important law, and actually it's the one that sort of created the thoughts around what to talk about today. And that's the third law, which is my favourite, which is any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. And of course, the TV glasses now exist. But more importantly, and this is a significant thing, is you've got Google Glasses and you've got driverless cars. We're moving towards space travel, and they're all really, really important things that are happening. But actually, what happens now is that a kid in his bedroom can come up with an idea, and they can create it, and they can create it fast. And one of our digital creative directors, Matthew Maxwell, came up with an application that maps the unique, essentially, fingerprint of your face and turns it into music. And so you end up with a unique track, which is your face. And what's really fun about that is that was done very simply, but using a lot of the tools that are available today. We saw earlier with Realize, for example, where the basis for the facial coding has existed for decades, and it's just now that we have all of the tools to enable us to actually take those facial coding elements and put them into something that works in real time. And cloud computing gives us the scale so we can do it really quickly. And all of the various coding tools and etc. that exist make this very easy to do. But at almost every level, even if you're not technical now, if you want to do something, you can do it. And all of us can actually gain that knowledge. So, who had tried the Oculus Rift before today? Anyone? Excellent, 3. And today? Brilliant. And what did you think? In the back. Excellent. So you're still, yeah. So I the first time I tried it, obviously back in the 90s, there was a massive thing around virtual reality, and it got bound into various films. And at that time, I was still fairly young, and they were actually bringing out products. But of course, what happened then is we didn't have the technology to actually make that idea a reality, even though it's in the relatively recent past. And a bunch of guys basically decided that they could do it. They put that out on Kickstarter, which is a crowdfunding site, if you don't know, and asked lots of other people, and they agreed. They've developed the first proper virtual reality headset, and as you may know, were bought by Facebook very recently for an obscene amount. Every time I look at the amount, I just blank my mind out because it just doesn't, not true. So the first time I put it on, I had, as I do maybe with things that really take us to the next level, I had an overwhelming feeling of joy, and I felt a bit sick. So for me, what I really wanted, I hope to show was the three keys in terms of how we can take something, a concept, an idea, and turn it into a reality. And it's accepting that we may not understand how to do it. It's having the genuine enthusiasm to push forward, and then experiencing that joy and also seeing other people experience that joy from achieving something. And an example of this from Imagination themselves that we produced and would provide that same feeling in the people that received their shiny new car is here. We got the sound? Oh, was it kicking slowly? That's your car. Thank you.